Step up your home decor game at HomeSense, the newest member of the HomeGoods family. Every day you'll find game-changing savings on rugs, lamps and chandeliers, furniture, and more for inside and outside your home. Make your backyard the envy of the neighborhood. HomeSense is a new shopping adventure on every visit. New finds arrive all the time, so it's never the same store twice. For brands you love at prices that make sense, take a virtual tour and find a store near you at homesense.com.
DJ Envy, Angela Yee, and Charlamagne the God.
Congratulate you, Hall of Famers. So honored to be in the presence of radio royalty.
It's the world's most dangerous morning show, The Breakfast Club.
It's a big deal.
I think that y'all have a certain amount of respect for, what everybody else does, and y'all are just the best at what y'all do.
We love y'all, man. Thank you for being the people's champs.
Probably the greatest.
All three of y'all. Listen to The Breakfast Club on the Black Effect iHeartRadio Podcast Network, on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Presented by Pepsi Zero Sugar.
Welcome in to the Lombardi Line. I am Brady Cannon along with Wes Reynolds, live from the South Point Hotel Casino and Spa on a Wednesday, this final day of June 2021. And Wes, here's a couple of numbers for you. We are 36 days away from the first preseason football game. We are 15 days away from the Open Championship, 8 days away from the beginning of the NBA Finals, and just 6 days, less than a week away from the match. Tom Brady and Phil Mickelson versus Aaron Rodgers and Bryson DeChambeau. The anticipation is thick, isn't it?
Pins and needles, Brady, for that match in Montana.
Absolutely. And by the way, Rodgers and DeChambeau are a pretty heavy favorite. And you could handicap certainly that Rodgers and DeChambeau are the better two golfers than Mickelson and Brady. Minus 185, though, to win that match.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you got to think Mickelson and Brady are going to have some pride at least.
You sure, at about plus 150. And then you've got, but Rodgers, and I was talking about this with Gil Alexander, is this an opportunity for him to finally beat Tom Brady?
He may look at it that way. Obviously, he has some other things on his mind that he's got to get rectified first before he worries about that golf game. But nevertheless, you always want to beat your competition no matter what it is.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we do not know who will be featured in the NBA Finals on July 8th just yet, but the Atlanta Hawks did take one step closer, coming up with a 110-88 victory over the Milwaukee Bucks on Tuesday to even that series at 2 games apiece. Atlanta wins outright as 9-point underdogs, and the game stays well under the total of 215. And all of this was without their star, Trae Young. He did not play due to a bone bruise in his foot. But really, Wes, it got worse for Milwaukee, who saw their star, Giannis Antetokounmpo, limp off the court with a knee injury in the third quarter. And it just piles on to what is now a very long list of injuries we've seen in this season's playoffs.
Yeah, and on the Milwaukee side, even before Giannis went down, they had 38 points in the first half. This is like when we were on the air yesterday, we thought, okay, Trae Young's probably going to go, but who knows how effective he's going to be. And then he gets ruled out before the game. And it's like, this is the time you kind of go for the throat, right? You've got this team wounded. I mean, you got to kick a guy when he's down. There's nothing about, being fair or sportsmanlike. It's like, if you've got the advantage, you got to take advantage. And Milwaukee really didn't. So now for Atlanta to be even 2-2 and basically have it as a best of 3 with Trae Young not playing in game 4, I think Atlanta would absolutely take that. So now the odds really are all over the place in terms of what you're looking at. I know Bucks minus 2.5, some threes out there is what I'm seeing for game 5. And that just basically says if you think home court is 3 points, which home courts kind of vary because of obviously less spectators and whatnot. So I think the odds makers are basically telling you is if Trae Young isn't going to go and Giannis isn't going to go, that this is basically a pick 'em. for Game 5 on Thursday. So I think it's kind of like the odds makers maybe don't know what to do with this game, and we can apply that also to that Phoenix Clippers game, which we'll talk about in just a few minutes. Sometimes the odd makers just set a number out there, and it's like, okay, you decide where it goes.
Yeah, take a bet, and you direct the traffic here, and we'll see where it goes. And you talk about home court and what's that worth. What is Giannis worth? And wasn't it when we were back in Milwaukee, they were about an 8-point favorite or so. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's telling us that Giannis is worth about 6 points, and now you're seeing the line down at 2.5. And really unfortunate for the Bucks. You talked about how, we were trying to handicap this game on Tuesday's show. It really didn't play out that way at all. And then Giannis in the third quarter really started to get Milwaukee back into it right before the injury. I'm not saying they would have won the game, but it looked like they were on their way back.
Yeah, and I was amazed to just see how poorly Milwaukee played, and just the fact that it seemed that they had no energy. It seems like they were a step slow, and plus Atlanta gets a wide variety of contributors. We said even with Trae Young, there's going to have to be somebody step up. Bogdanovich, we know, is not 100%, but he gives you 20. Lou Williams, he's always been a really good scorer off the bench pretty much everywhere he's been in the NBA. He gives you 21. Kevin Huerter, Cam Reddish gave you double digits off the bench. So everybody kind of stepped up, and it's that fallen hero thing, and we've seen it a couple times already in the playoffs. You get overreactions on these lines. I think if that Young news would have been announced earlier in the day, that thing might have closed 9.5.
Yeah.
Perhaps even 10. I think at 10 you would have seen buyback, but we saw that a couple weeks ago. I think it was the first game Kawhi missed in Utah, and that line was 2.5 Jazz at home, and then it closed 8.5, so it crosses 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Almost when it's crossing these many numbers, you're probably best suited, at least long term. That doesn't mean you're going to win every bet, but going ahead and fading that steam and backing the team that's going to be shorthanded without a superstar.
That fallen hero theory has been way too common of a theme during this playoffs. Mm-hmm. I don't think we've talked about that so much. All these injuries, and they all are heroes. They're all all-stars. Now 10 of them that have gone down when you include Giannis
Antetokounmpo. Easy for us to say, right? I know. I do that too.
Let's talk about the series price, and our friends at BetMGM have not posted, and a lot of people have not posted an adjusted series price for the Hawks and the Milwaukee Bucks, who's going to advance to the NBA Finals. But PointsBet does have a number up, and we don't have the exact series result, if it's going to be Bucks in 7 and, Atlanta in 7, all those numbers, but just a straight series price. At PointsBet, they've got Milwaukee as a favorite at minus 148 and Atlanta on the takeback at plus 125. And I think it's hard to bet this at this point, Wes, if you want to speculate that Giannis is going to miss, maybe the rest of the series. I mean, do you think Atlanta at plus money is a good deal?
Well, you could either try to play it that way, or you can look at what BetMGM has, which is after the Giannis injury in terms of the adjusted futures market. Now, keep in mind, that obviously includes the two participants in the Western Conference Finals, but Suns minus 130, Bucks plus 325, Hawks plus 550, and then the Los Angeles Clippers plus 650 are the longest shot on the board of the 4 remaining semifinal teams. So it really depends on how you want to play it. I think that this is Milwaukee's series to win. I just think, without a guy that's so ball dominant like Trae Young, that doesn't mean Giannis doesn't have the ball either, but he's not the sole ball dominant guy. You would still kind of favor Milwaukee at least a little bit, because there's other guys that can handle the ball on Milwaukee. Now, based on what we saw, people are going to be prone or prisoner to the moment of what they saw last. And what they saw was Atlanta step up without Trae Young, and the Bucks absolutely fall apart without Milwaukee. So I think you will be getting some action in that series price should it come out more widespread on Atlanta, but I think it's kind of buy low on Milwaukee, to be honest with you.
All right, tonight in Los Angeles, it is Game 6 between the Phoenix Suns and the Clippers, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for your tip. Phoenix leads the series 3-2. Your adjusted series price here, the Suns, still a pretty good-sized favorite at BetMGM, minus 550. The takeback on the Clippers is 4-1 to advance to the finals. But for tonight, Game 6, basically a pick 'em across the board, Wes. West. Here at BetMGM, Phoenix is a 1-point favorite. There are other stores that have the Clippers as a 1-point favorite, but the consensus price is Pick'em and $2.15 for your total.
There are some +1s out there, and I do like the Clippers actually in this spot in +1. And you look Ty Lue when he's facing elimination, 10-2 record. That's actually the best in NBA history by a head coach with a minimum of 10 games, which you wouldn't think that would jump out at you because Ty Lue taken 2 games really in all 3 of these series to kind of say, okay, what can I figure out? What do we do differently? And then the Clippers play better from there. So you look at the last time the Clippers played, the Game 5, Zubac was ruled out with a sprained MCL. And the Clippers, all they've been doing is overcoming adversity all postseason with Kawhi being out and everything that's been going on with the team. And now you have the Phoenix Suns in a spot where now all of a sudden it's been a little bit more smooth sailing. Not to say they haven't had injuries or anything, but it's been a lot less of, I guess, a circuitous path for the Phoenix Suns to get to this spot. Well, now you're in that spot where you got adversity, and this is still a young team, despite the fact you have a veteran leader in Chris Paul. So it's like, oh, gosh, what do we do now? Clippers are used to this. This is absolutely nothing new for them. But when I go kind of to the meat and potatoes of the matchup, and John Von Tobel at VSiN.com does great job writing these games up, and I'm sure he'll have a write-up up today if it's not up already. But he often talks about some of these numbers like offensive rating. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the Phoenix Suns, the first 2 games of this series, the O rating was 130.5 and 115.9 in games 1 and games 2, respectively. Now, the offense has kind of fallen off a cliff. 100.1, 93.6, and 104.6 per 100 possessions over the last 3 games. And what you've really seen is because Chris Paul is back. For all the good things Chris Paul does is he slows down the pace. 93.39 pace with him on the floor, with him off the floor, 104.39. What it has done, though, is it's downgraded their efficiency. And just the half-court offense has not been good. The Suns have been scoring better in the games he missed due to COVID-19 in games 1 and game 2. So ever since he's returned, 97.7 points per 100 possessions when you take all the games aggregate together with him on the floor. And it's 112.5 with him out of the floor. So now, when not only you've seen the inefficiencies in the offense the last 3 games, you also got to look at the fact that DeAndre Ayton has this big minus rating. I think he's minus 42 points when he's on the floor. He was such a beast in the first couple games, but they've kind of neutralized him a little bit. And that's Phoenix's best matchup, if you look at it on paper.
Sure.
Is how are they going to match up with DeAndre Ayton, that being the Clippers? You know you don't have Ibaka, and this is the series you really miss him. Now Zubac, who knows what's going to happen with him, doesn't look like he's going to play. DeMarcus Cousins, can't guard. So you would figure, okay, Ayton's just going to have a feast down low, and he really hasn't. So what I like from the Clippers is somebody else did step up in Game 5. That was Marcus Morris. He was the big beneficiary, I think, of Zubac being out. Kind of like the guy that's been the beneficiary for the most part with Kawhi being out has been Terrence Mann, despite the fact that he's 2 of 8 and only had 4 points in Game 5. So I do like the Clippers to keep this momentum going. I just think that the Suns' offense is struggling, and I think now mentally it's like, how do we deal with this adversity? Because it's like we're dealing with it for the first time in the playoffs. Most of the things has been smooth sailing. We got the first 2 wins without Chris Paul. So now, it's go time. It's, the butts get kind of tight here late in Game 6, and the Clippers have been there, done that. So I like the Clippers here +1 tonight.
Now, you illustrate the theory that, like you say, Clippers have been there, done that, and they certainly did in Game 5 up against elimination and Ty Lue's record when facing elimination. And maybe the Suns were a little bit overconfident in that game, but they ascended to such highs. Paul George had a career effort in that game, and Reggie Jackson and Morris that you mentioned. Aren't these guys maybe due to come back down to earth a little bit for Game 6 here and Phoenix rebounds? I mean, can you make that argument as well? I kind of actually think Phoenix will, it's a pick'em game. We're not really talking about a point spread. I think Phoenix is going to win this one in advance.
Well, you could certainly subscribe to that philosophy. That's not far-fetched at all necessarily, because you got to think, okay, those numbers are going to decline for Paul George, but somebody else can maybe fill that role. And Reggie Jackson, I think, has been a guy that's been very consistent throughout this series. And you look at what the Clippers are doing defensively. Patrick Beverley on Devin Booker has really, I don't want to say shut him down, but has at least kept him at bay.
He's been a real distraction.
Yeah, if you look at what Beverley has done, he's holding Booker to 31% shooting. He's caused 15 turnovers when they've been matched up on the floor together. Also does a good job switching on to Chris Paul, who hasn't been able to hit those jump shots in this series. So, look, the one thing you worry about with the Clippers is that Paul George's minutes are obviously adding up and has had to shoulder more of the load with Kawhi being out. He's played 735 minutes in the postseason. The next closest is Devin Booker at 605. So that is a bit of a concern that fatigue is going to set in for Game 7 if it should go to Game 7. But I do like the Clippers in this spot. The Suns haven't shown to me that they figured this out yet offensively, what they're going to do. And you look at the Clippers, you also got to think maybe water's going to find its level a little bit more. They were the top three-point shooting team in the league in the regular season at just under 42%. In this series, they're just over 34%. And the corner threes, where they shot like 47% in the regular season, they're only shooting about 30% here in the playoffs. So maybe there's a sense if Georgia's scoring goes down, somebody else's is going to go up, that eventually, okay, are the percentages going to even out and the Clippers are going to hit threes. So I do like them tonight in Game 6. Now, I am worried, as I mentioned, about Paul George, the fatigue finally setting in where it's just too much to overcome in Game 7.
Do you think there's a coaching advantage one way or another, Monty Williams against Ty Lue?
I think it's been pretty even. Monty Williams obviously won regular season coach of the year. Ty Lue, for all of his demerits, at least when you start the series, the initial game plan, sometimes the initial game plan doesn't work. What's that old fighting adage? Everybody's got a plan so they get punched in the face. Well, once it gets punched in the face, he adjusts. And he has certainly done that, I think, in not only in the Dallas series, but in the Utah series. The small ball lineup he's gone with, and I think it's been relatively successful. Part of it has been out of necessity because you obviously have had Ibaka hurt. Now you have Zubac hurt. So I think it's been pretty even here, and it's all about making shots.
We'll see if Monty Williams felt that was a punch in the face in Game 5 and how he responds in Game 6. Tonight in Los Angeles, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Just getting started here on the Lombardi line on a Wednesday. Brady Cannon and Wes Reynolds with you. We'll be back to talk some hockey when we return right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Good afternoon. Would you like to try a free sample of our double fudge brownie?
Oh, sure. That's very good. I'll just take one more, just to be sure. Yep, still very good.
Some things never change, like never being able to take just one free sample. And Geico saving folks lots of money on their car insurance.
Is that macadamia nut I taste? Let me take one more.
Sir?
Yeah, I thought so.
15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Change the way you think about your home with HomeSense, the newest member of the home goods family. They've got everything for your home inside and out. HomeSense lets you reimagine every room with fresh discoveries. Furniture? You bet. Rugs? Lots of them. Table lamps, floor lamps, chandeliers? Yes, yes, and yes. Plus, there's wall art, oversized mirrors, and enough outdoor furniture and decor to make your backyard the envy of the neighborhood. Grab the melamine dishes you've been looking for, or that 6-piece outdoor set. With same-day delivery, you can have it today. HomeSense is a new shopping adventure every time you visit. New finds arrive all the time, so every day you'll find incredible savings on different must-have decor. Pro tip, if you see something you love, don't wait, because at HomeSense, finds go fast. Get the brands you love at prices that make sense, so you can make the most of your home for less. Take a virtual tour and find a store near you at homesense.com.
With basketball, hockey, and baseball games every week, it's time to get into BetMGM Sports Nevada, the premier sports betting app. BetMGM has all your favorite wagering options, along with in-game betting, boosted odds specials, and much more. Download the BetMGM app today and stop by any MGM casino on the Strip with your state-issued ID to open an account and start placing sports bets from anywhere in Nevada. Whatever your sport, whatever your betting style, you're going to love BetMGM's state-of-the-art technology and fan-friendly specials every day of the week. Visit BetMGM for terms and conditions. Must be 21 years of age or older and physically located in Nevada. Please gamble responsibly. If you have a problem, call 1-800-522-4700. The Stanley Cup Final resumes tonight, this evening in Tampa, Florida, where the Tampa Bay Lightning have a 1-0 lead on the Montreal Canadiens. It'll be a 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern puck drop. The series price has adjusted with Tampa Bay winning Game 1. They were about a -275, even a -300 favorite before Game 1. Now up to -550 here at BetMGM. Montreal on the takeback is 4-1 to hoist the cup. Now for Game 2 tonight, we've seen the line on the Lightning increase. You remember Game 1, Wes, they were bought down to about -190. Now they are better than $2 favorites pretty much across the board. And here at BetMGM, -215 on the money line in favor of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Total of 5, and the juice has come down a little bit to -120.
Yeah, just on the number here, I'm going to be looking at the Montreal Canadiens, just on a little bit of an overreaction, and I do think the Tampa Bay Lightning are clearly the better team. But if you look at Game 1, it was a 5-1 result. Sometimes you want to go inside the numbers. Actually, oftentimes you want to go inside the numbers. And that 5-1 was a little bit deceiving because I don't believe, even though Tampa Bay had control of the game, it didn't play out. If you look at like the metrics and whatnot, it didn't play out to a 5-1 final score. If you look, Montreal had 47% of the expected goal share. The high danger chances were only 8-7 in favor of Tampa Bay. Montreal did give up the power play goal late or in the third period. And we had Dan Rosen of NHL.com yesterday on the My Guy show. And he talked about when Tampa Bay scored on that power play, they had all 5 forwards out there too. They did not have any defensemen. This was like, okay, we're going to stack it up here because the game had already been pretty much decided. And it's like, we're going to prove that we can score on this power play because this Canadiens penalty kill has been so good. Remember, they held Vegas Golden Knights to 0 of 17 in that semifinal series, and they had the best penalty kill basically in the playoffs, and obviously great goaltending from Carey Price. So Tampa Bay, I think, was kind of sending a message there and trying to prove a point, having those 5 forwards out there. And then if you recall back to our discussion yesterday with our guest Rob Pizzola, the Philip Deneau line was really rendered a little bit, I don't want to say useless. That's probably too strong of a term, but they paired that second line against those guys, and what they did was they put the first line against the Cole Caulfield, Tyler Toffoli, and Suzuki line that was so good against the Vegas Golden Knights. But in Game 1 of this Stanley Cup Final, -3 for that line of Caulfield, Toffoli, and Suzuki. So that line's period has to play better and has to give them some contribution. When you look at what Montreal has done throughout the playoffs, it's kind of an uncanny stat. 11-0 when they get 2 goals or more. It's like Carey Price just needs the Jacob deGrom run support to be able to get wins here in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But as soon as I start to see close to 190, and we're seeing some 185 in the market right now. I know it's 175 now here at BetMGM, but as soon as we start to get to that 190, I could only bet the Montreal Canadiens because I did not think that first game was as much of a lopsided score as you think. We know who the better team is. We know who the deeper team is. We know who the more offensively talented team is, but I'm going to probably take a shot with the Canadiens, and I'm just waiting to see what number I can get, but that's who I will be on.
If you go away from the numbers for a minute and you just take the eye test for Game 1, I mean, that looked like a sterling effort from the defending champion Tampa Bay Lightning. So
very similar to what we saw in the Vegas Golden Knights series.
Sure. So is that going to influence you like, oh my gosh, the Lightning are going to kill this team? You know, hey, not so fast, right? So maybe that is, to your point, away from the numbers a little bit, just on the eye test too, are they really going to perform at a nearly perfect level again? Are they going to be able to repeat that effort?
you might get some, I don't want to call it complacency, but we kind of saw that in that last series. It looked like Vegas Golden Knights, they're just going to roll over this team. Water's going to find its level. And maybe that's going to be the same thing with Tampa Bay. That's what people are thinking. Then you kind of take it a little bit for granted. And Montreal, is going to give the max effort. They have done it every single night in and night out. So I like the Canadiens in the big price tonight.
And if they do win this game tonight, you've got a whole new ball game as far as the series is concerned.
Yes.
The Montreal Canadiens looking for the split tonight down in Tampa, Florida. They are big underdogs. West looking for plus 190 on the takeback. Currently at BetMGM at plus 175. There are some plus 180s out there on the underdog Canadiens. We will be visiting with Steve Makinen, the editor of Point Spread Weekly, next right here on the Lombardi Line. This summer, it's time to update your sports betting wardrobe with some new VSiN gear. We've got hats, shirts, and mugs with the VSiN logo or fun sports betting sayings like cash and tickets is what it's all about. And it's not under until it's over. Visit the VSiN store today at vsin.com/store and find the perfect item for yourself or as a gift. That's vsin.com/store. Brady Cannon and Wes Reynolds with you inside the Lombardi Line, and it's time to join Steve Makinen now. He is the editor of VSiN's online digital publication, Point Spread Weekly, which, Wes, just dropped into our inbox, and for all you subscribers out there, I'm sure it has arrived as well, as it does each and every Wednesday morning. Good morning to you, Steve, and perusing through this week's issue, I see you are back on to your college football previews, and last week you looked at things from more of a personnel standpoint, teams that may regress or teams that may improve based on personnel and rosters. Now, this week you're going more into the stats and the numbers. What did you find as far as teams maybe coming out good in 2021, or maybe we'll have some decline?
Well, I found plenty, Brady, but I want to kind of start this particular article by acknowledging the fact that things are a lot different this season when you look back at last year's statistics. You got to kind of weigh the stats that these teams got because they didn't play the normal number of games. They didn't play the typical type of schedule strengths they usually do. Some teams played 2 games, some teams played full season. So take that in mind as you read through some of these systems this week. But found plenty of good nuggets to maybe project whether teams could be better or not. Starting just at the top here, there have been 46 teams over the last 8 seasons that have endured losing seasons despite outscoring their opponents. When those teams bring back 13 starters or more and their quarterback, they usually improve. There are 5 teams on the list for that this year, including Penn State, Troy, UCLA, Wake Forest, Wyoming. Got plenty more of that type of analysis in this week's article.
Yeah, and Steve, I was looking at that in terms of a lot of these teams and, returning starters, obviously, now that these publications in the preseason are coming out, that is obviously going to be put out there in terms of, who's going to be on what side of the ball and whatnot. So we're starting to get that. And I noticed a very interesting nugget here in terms of over the last 6 seasons, one of the things that do even out, and I know that's something Phil Steele puts in his publication, is turnover differential. And I saw something here in your article about teams that were better than 500 against the spread, but were down on turnovers. Usually those teams tend to bounce back this season. And who is that candidate for the 2021 campaign?
Yeah, that's a good point out there, Wes. That team is Oregon. Now, you may remember they worked their way into the Pac-12 championship because Washington had to back out and such. But they won that game. But for the season, they were under 500 against the spread. Or wait, I'm sorry. They were over 500 against the spread, despite a real bad turnover differential. That leads to good improvement historically. So watch out for Oregon this year. They got a lot of changes, new quarterback, that type of thing. But this is a team that has recruited well. They're typically talent loaded. they could have a big season, particularly if this type of system comes into play.
Oh, I like that. Really good against the spread, despite being negative in turnover differential. Look out for the Ducks. Steve, let's turn to Major League Baseball. You pointed out a number of pitchers in this week's article that have some pretty glaring splits at home versus on the road. And it's become pretty well known over the last month or so about Blake Snell, fantastic at home and equally awful, really, on the road. What other pitchers did you find such a big discrepancy with, and do you have any betting opportunities coming up here in the near future?
Yeah, you know what? This is interesting because last night I put a tweet out about this article coming out yesterday, and magically Blake Snell gets scratched from his start with an illness on the road. So if you look at the schedule coming up for San Diego, moving him back that one day would mean he only has to go one of these starts on the road instead of two. So you have to wonder if this maybe played into that. Article got off to a good start last night with Marquez having a great outing at home for Colorado. So that continuing a pattern for that. But we got a couple today going. Mike Minor, he's going to be in Boston today. He's a pretty short price on this game, considering how Kansas City's been playing as compared to Boston. So I think maybe some bettors are on to this trend. He's been pretty good on the road. 10.42 Ks per nine. He's 5-2 with the Royals. Good chance of him going into Boston today and maybe scoring an upset for bettors. And then the other one we got on the table today is Steven Matz. He's kind of struggled at home. He's a pretty high favorite today against Seattle. He's been 1-4, minus 4.5 units at home, as compared to 6-2 plus 4.8 units on the road. So he's been much better on the road. Chance to pitch at home, even though you may not consider these Toronto games home, but he's been much better on the road. So possible fade opportunity against Toronto today.
You know, I was upset that this issue arrived when it did, because I bet Steven Matz last night, and then I saw your article, Steve. I'm like, oh, goodness.
Well, you might have gotten the good number if you got it the overnight, because this has moved big. And by the way, Justice Sheffield has kind of been a little bit of a fade this year, so that's why you're seeing that. Also, to Steve's point on Mike Minor, good on the road. Martin Perez has been a little bit better on the road, too, so Kansas City is getting the money. But, Steve, let's go NASCAR racing, and it's not too far from where you are. Elkhart Lake up in Wisconsin at Road America, one of my favorite road courses personally. The IndyCars there were just there a few weeks ago. And Kyle Larson didn't get a win. He almost had one on Saturday at Pocono, but blew a tire and hit the wall as he was finishing the final lap. But you've got him on top of the model this week in Elkhart Lake.
Yeah, this is going to be another new race to the circuit, or the Cup Series this year. 4-mile track, long road course. I've been to this track before. Typically, you get a lot of action in some of the different corners, so it's usually a good watch. I would typically tend to lean to the guys who've been good road courses, even though this is a new track here. I mean, you still got to rely on what we've seen, especially with the expanded number of road course tracks on the schedule this season. So Kyle Larson's been good. Chase Elliott's been good at these places. Joey Logano, typically a good racer. I think the race pretty much comes down to those three. Maybe a Martin Truex, too. He's been good. He's been struggling lately, but could use a bounce back in this particular race.
First time since 1956 that they've had it wasn't called the Cup Series back then, but that was the last time the top NASCAR series raced at this course. So good to see some more road racing on the circuit, I say.
Very cool. Thank you as always, Mr. Makinen, and we'll watch for that NASCAR update at your Twitter handle, @Steve Makinen. You enjoy the rest of your week, Steve. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you guys too. Thank you.
All right, we will be back to talk some College World Series here on the Lombardi Line at VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Look, staying healthy isn't easy. Watching your diet, hitting the gym, avoiding stress. But a good night's rest helps boost your overall health and wellness. And it couldn't be easier. The new Sleep Number 360 Smart Bed is the only bed that effortlessly adjusts and responds to both of you. The result? You wake up ready for anything. Proven quality sleep is life-changing sleep. Don't miss our 4th of July special. The new Queen Sleep Number 360 C2 Smart Bed is only $8.99. Plus free premium delivery when you add a base. Ends Monday. To learn more, go to sleepnumber.com.
This episode is brought to you by the NBA. Witness mind-bending competition on the biggest stage between the best players in the world, a place where legends are made. It's impossible jumps that seem to freeze in midair, and spectacular steals that you didn't see coming. It's that one play that lasts seconds that you will talk about for the rest of your life. And let's face it, it's the unpredictability of it all, never knowing when the next big moment will happen. Huge wins and crushed dreams. It's the drama of it all. You just can't make this stuff up. That's the NBA. That's game. The NBA playoffs are happening right now. Don't miss all the action.
Turn a $1 wager on the Clippers or the Suns into 100 with BetMGM. If either team hits a three-pointer, just use the bonus code VSIN100 when you sign up for the King of Sportsbooks. And get ready for showtime. Download the app or go to BetMGM.com for more details. Make sure to use the promo code VSIN100. It's a new customer offer, paid in free bets. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. Must be 21 years of age or older to wager. Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, Washington, D.C., or West Virginia only. Please gamble responsibly. If you have a problem, call 1-800-522-4700 in Colorado, Nevada, Virginia, and Washington, D.C., 1-800-270-7117 in Michigan, 1-800-GAMBLER in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, in Tennessee, 800-889-9789, and 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana. The promotional offer is not available in Nevada. Welcome back to the Lombardi Line. Brady Cannon and Wes Reynolds with you, taking a look at the College Baseball World Series. There will be a rubber match for all the marbles down in Omaha, Nebraska this evening. The College World Series is all tied at one game apiece in the best-of-3 series, with Mississippi State winning on Tuesday 13-2, a drubbing of Vanderbilt down in Omaha. 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern for the first pitch this evening. Of course, Wes, if we don't get another weather delay, we've had those in the first of the two games. As the afternoon weather heats up down there in Omaha, we get a little rain, and that has been the case in the first two games of this championship. But we expect Kumar Rocker and Will Bednar to go. Kumar, not necessarily the ace, but maybe the number 2 to Leiter for Vanderbilt. But Bednar, definitely the ace for Mississippi State, but working off of just 3 days rest. Now, Vanderbilt is a small favorite here to win their second straight national title. On the money line tonight, it is anywhere from -120 to -130. And with this pitching matchup, Wes, we've seen this total drop by to the tune of 2.5, 3 runs, all the way down to 7.5 here, and even that's juiced to the under.
Yeah, when we talked about this yesterday, we kind of recommended. I was saying I think that there's some value if you want to go Mississippi State down 1-0 in the series, and what I saw at a couple places in the market was about plus 350-ish. So now you've essentially got a plus 350 dog here in Game 3. So there is some line equity there. Now, all of that closing line value is not going to matter if they don't win, but at least I think you made a proper bet there if you went ahead and bet them in the series. And to your point, the starting pitchers expected tonight, not official, but this is who they're going to be. Kumar Rocker, career short, 4 days rest. The most outstanding player at the 2019 College World Series when Vandy beat Michigan in that final for the title. So he is going to go on short rest, as is Will Bednar for Mississippi State. Career short, 3 days rest. He struck out 22 in 2 College World Series starts so far. He had, I believe, 15 in that first game and then came back in the next game against Texas. But last night, Mississippi State, 2 lopsided wins here so far in the series. It was 13-2 last night. Hudson Harding, the starter, only went 4 innings, so it was actually Preston Johnson, not to be confused with the Sports Cheetah, who's a friend of ours and who's appeared on VSiN any number of occasions. He got the win, the junior college transfer. So now you look Bednar with the short rest, but one of the edges for Mississippi State is they got Landon Sims.
Yeah,
and
he didn't go last night.
He did not have to pitch last night because Mississippi State got such a lopsided win and really put it to bed early. So Landon Sims is a guy that can eat innings too. When you look at like closers, obviously when we're looking on the major league side, closers for the most part pretty much are just 1 inning guys, or they can only come in with the lead or they can only pitch them in the 9th inning. That's not so in college baseball. Landon Sims is a guy that could go 3-4 innings if he has to, strikes out guys with relative aplomb. If you look at his regular season, I think 85 of the 158 batters he struck out during the regular season and has obviously been very effective. So I thought that gave Mississippi State a little bit of an edge here to have a little bit better bullpen, because I think they both, Vanderbilt's got the 1-2 punch in terms of an ace, but these teams both have quality pitching staffs, and you had Mississippi State only have to use 2 pitchers last night, that being Harding in the 4 innings and then Preston Johnson cleaned up the last 5. Meanwhile, Vanderbilt used 5 pitchers last night. So you got to think the bullpen edge could go to Mississippi State, not just with Sims, but just with the depth. So that's why I thought that series price, okay, go ahead and bet it. And if they win game 2, you've got absolutely tremendous value for game 3. So sitting pretty for those that followed on that one. And I do like Mississippi State in the game anyway. Now, with that much equity, I wouldn't go ahead and go for seconds and bet them at plus 110 or plus 115, which is kind of pretty much what I'm seeing. I'm even seeing some even money on the Bulldogs here. So, if you bet that series price, you're setting pretty, but I do like Mississippi State here in game 3.
Well, you talk about Landon Sims. He is maybe the most valuable player for Mississippi State, and he has not pitched since they were able to close out the Texas Longhorns over the weekend. So he's pretty well rested, and I think it's worked out really well for the Bulldogs, where he didn't go in game 1 because that was kind of a blowout. There was no reason for him to come in on that one in a loss, and then, of course, they blow out Vanderbilt in a win on Tuesday night. So this guy's sitting there with a head of steam, well rested. It's going to come down to Bednar for me. Is it going to be too short a rest for him?
Right.
Will they light him up? And you mentioned a career short rest for Rocker too, but he's had one more day than Bednar.
Yeah, absolutely. So we shall see how quick of a hook Chris Lemonis is going to have, the skipper down there at Mississippi State. So I want to see how far he can go. He's obviously a guy that can strike out a lot of batters. He's one of the best in the country and is absolutely their ace. So, I would think that if they get Bednar through 5, I think Lemonis and company is going to be very happy with that effort, because then they can turn it over to Landon Sims for the Final 4.
And we'll talk more about that in hour number 2 of the show here with Lou Finicaro, who's really been on top of it as far as the College World Series. We'll talk College World Series and hockey with Mr. Finicaro coming up in about a half an hour from now. Want to turn to the PGA Tour, West. They will be in Detroit, Michigan for the Rocket Mortgage Classic this week. This will be the 3rd edition of the Rocket Mortgage Classic, a relatively new tournament to the PGA Tour schedule at the Detroit Golf Club in Detroit, Michigan, a Donald Ross design. And Bryson DeChambeau is your defending champion and also the favorite here at BetMGM at just plus 750. Patrick Reed is the second choice at 14-1. Hideki Matsuyama and Webb Simpson at 18-1. Jason Kokrak, Joaquin Neiman, Matthew Wolff, and Will Zalatoris all at 25-1.
And Bryson DeChambeau, not surprisingly, the favorite here, considering he's the defending champion. This was really the debut, I guess, if you want to call it, of the bomb and gouge that he did at Wingfoot to win the U.S. Open last September and also won this event. Him and Matt Wolff were 1-2 in the event. But you really can't get more polar opposites. That's why it was so hard with the 2-year sample size, because Nate Lashley, not exactly a bomber. Bryson DeChambeau, of course, is. So it's not like you have a pattern of players where you can look at and say, okay, ball strikers or guys that are really long off the tee or guys that are good with short irons or guys that are good around the greens. You really don't have that here. So one of the things you have to use is some Donald Ross correlations and those that maybe have succeeded at the Wyndham Championship at Sedgefield down in Greensboro. So that's why I think a lot of guys have gravitated to Webb Simpson. Now, I did not, even though his numbers on Donald Ross is absolutely dwarf almost everybody's in the field, and he loves these courses. But he did pull out supposedly with an injury at the Wells Fargo. He was bad at the U.S. Open. So, maybe this is the time to go in, but I wanted to wait and see a little bit. I needed another performance that was convincing. Jason Kokrak and Joaquin Niemann were two that I did land on. They are becoming a little popular, which we were talking about before the show. Kind of concerns us a little bit, but sometimes popular choices win. So,
well, there's not a lot of attractive choices to choose from.
Yeah, there's not.
That you made,
there's only 10 of the top 50 in terms of the official world golf rankings. And there's only a couple of those guys that are playing the Irish Open on the European Tour, like McIlroy, Shane Lowry, Tommy Fleetwood. That's not exactly a deep field either, because we're going to get to next week where we got the Scottish Open on the European Tour, which is going to be a huge field, at least from top class, based on the early entry report. That doesn't finalize until Friday. And then we know what the John Deere Classic is. You don't always get a lot of the top guys. That's a big tournament for players, obviously, to try to improve FedEx Cup standings, get a win, get that last spot into the Open Championship. Usually the top guy that's not qualified gets that spot. So Niemann and Kokrak were two I play. Kokrak is part of that two-time winners club that Harris English joined last week here in 2021. English, Cantlay, Bryson DeChambeau, Stuart Sink, and Jason Kokrak. This could be a spot where he gets his third victory, though. I know he missed the cut 2 weeks ago at the U.S. Open, but if you look at this Detroit Golf Club, I think it's really suited for his game. He's sixth in strokes gained off the tee in this field over the last 24 rounds, leads the field in birdie or better, which I thought was very important. Yep. Look at the two winning scores here, 25 under and 23 under. You better make birdies here, and you're going to have a lot of opportunities to do so.
Well, he's 12th on tour in birdie average. He is second on tour in strokes gained putting, and he is fifth on tour in total driving. So I think it'll be a good week for Jason Kokrak. But, Wes, when we have a birdie fest, and we talk about this, a lot of times it becomes a putting contest, hitting greens in regulation and then making putts. And you talked about it on the program yesterday. Hitting or handicapping putting is really difficult because it's probably the most volatile statistic. If a guy's a good iron player, if a guy's a good player off the tee, that usually is going to carry over week to week. It not is always the case with putting, but I pretty much went that direction, trying to handicap this golf course basically from 150 yards in. Who's going to hit greens? Who's going to scramble? Who's going to roll some putts in? And I pretty much went with all guys that have a very good short game.
Yeah, and this is that POA bent grass mix. I think it's about 70-30 in terms of the split based on what I read, that it's going to be 70% POA. So, look, we've seen a lot of POA lately. We saw some last week, obviously saw some at the U.S. Open at Torrey Pines. So one guy that I thought was a good long shot that I played at 85-1, he's drifted a little bit downwards now, is Maverick McNeely, who grew up on that type of course and also has a local connection. His dad was born in Detroit. He's named after a classic car, Maverick. Because his dad, I believe, worked at GM or started at GM before he founded Sun Microsystems. So, don't be afraid to go down the board here. There will be some bombs on the first page of the leaderboard come Sunday.
Yeah, I went with a couple of guys that have had good success on this putting surface before in Alex Noren and Matt Jones. So we will see if we can hit a long bomb for the Long Shots crew. That's 1 hour in the books here on the Lombardi Line. We'll be back on the other side when we return on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Hey guys, this is Gabby Douglas. If you have an active lifestyle like me, hydration is key. That's why I love the Hydration Watermelon Smoothie from Smoothie King. Blended with whole fruits, coconut water, and more electrolytes than some of the leading sports drinks. Hydration Watermelon is the cleaner way to hydrate, with no artificial colors, flavors, or preservatives. So you can recover and perform at your peak ability during the summer heat. Order online or through the app for pickup or delivery. Smoothie King, rule the day.
The Death and Life of Kobe Bryant is a limited series podcast that looks back at the investigation of the crash a year ago that killed the basketball superstar, his daughter, and 7 others.
A helicopter crashed into a mountain We heard it, and now I'm looking at the flames.
The Death and Life of Kobe Bryant includes exclusive content and a look at the legacy number 24 leaves behind.
In so many ways, and so many millions of people loved him for so many different reasons.
Listen to The Death and Life of Kobe Bryant on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.